So, welcome to the next Fix-It lesson. So, please come and sit towards the front edge of your chair. Hope you're all warm enough. My house wasn't so warm a minute or so ago. Please come and sit towards the front edge of your chair, and then as you come to the front edge of the chair, just spend a moment to notice the shape of your spine. So are you tending to round back into your clothing, and if that is happening, could you think of pushing the lower tummy forward, pushing it forward and down, just to help lengthen up through the spine? Good. And then just have a sense as you're sitting here, are you perhaps tending to favour one side more than the other? Do you get any sense of that? It can be very hard to know that if it's a habit, because of course your habit's telling you you're in the middle, when often that's not truly the case. But just what do you feel as you're sitting here in terms of the two sides? Good. And then please just bring the hands to rest on the thighs and begin to move your right knee a little bit to the outside and a little bit to the inside. So not a big movement, but feeling how this movement is coming from the hip joint to move the knee from side to side, but how the pressure or the contact underneath the feet is changing depending on the position of the knee. So the pressure is going to the outside and to the inside. Good. Now pause, bring your attention to your left knee and begin to move the left knee a little bit to the outside and a little bit to the inside. Again, feeling how this is a movement in the hip joint, but how the pressure underneath the foot is shifting to the outside and to the inside of the foot too. Good. Now pause, please leave that alone. Bring your attention back to the right leg, and then could you begin to lift the big toe side of the foot and then the little toe side of the foot, but keeping the knee more or less still in space. So you're lifting the big toe side of the foot and then the little toe side of the foot, but trying to keep the knee fairly still in space. So this time it's a movement in the ankle that we're exploring to change the contact underneath the foot. And then please pause, bring your attention to your left foot and begin to lift the big toe side and then the little toe side of the left foot, but keeping the knee as much as possible still in space. And as you're just exploring a few more of those, it's interesting, perhaps you'll notice how when you lift the big toe side of the foot, there's this external rotation of the lower leg that takes place relative to the knee, and when you lift the little toe side, putting the big toe side, it's a rotation of the lower leg in the opposite direction, internally rotating relative to the knee. Good. And then pause. Please bring your right foot forward, just slightly in front of the left foot, and then could you just lift the toes and then put them down. Just lift the 5 toes and then put them down, and then lift the toes and then put them down, and then lift the toes followed by the ball of the foot, put the ball of the foot down and then the toes. So toes lifting first, followed by the ball of the foot. Try to put the ball of the foot down and then the toes. And then once more toes, ball of the foot, putting the ball of the foot down and then the toes. Good. And then please leave that alone, switch feet, so it's the left foot that's slightly forward. And first of all, could you just lift the toes and then put them back down? So just lifting the 5 toes and then putting them back down, and once more the 5 toes and then back down, and then think of lifting the toes followed by the ball of the foot, trying to put the ball of the foot down and then the toes. So once more, toes, ball of the foot, putting the ball of the foot down, and then the toes, and one more time, toes, ball of the foot, putting the ball of the foot down, and then the toes. Good. Good. Just bring the left foot back, bring the right foot again slightly forward, and lift the front of the foot, and then begin to make some of our ankle circles or foot circles, thinking of the big toe side of the foot, turning the dials of an imaginary clock that's on the floor in front of you, and then just reverse the direction of those circles, still thinking of the big toe side of the foot leading the movement. And then pause, and now think of the little toe side of the foot making these circles. So just allowing the movement to travel freely up towards the knee and into the hip joint, and then reverse the direction of those circles, still thinking of the little toe side of the foot leading the movement. Good. And then please pause, bring the right leg back, bring the left foot slightly forward, and then lift the front of the foot, and then with your big toe, just very free circles with the big toe, as big a circle and generous a circle as possible, but so you're allowing the movement to travel all the way through the knee into the hip joint, and then just reverse the direction of those circles. So still thinking of the big toe, oh, got a click then, that's a bonus, the big toe side of the foot leading the movement, and then pause and now think of the little toe side of the foot making these circles in space. And then just reverse the direction of those circles. Good. And then come to centre. Good. Now bring the two legs back together. Have your two hands just resting on the thighs, and then just begin to slide your right hand down the lower leg. So you let the head go and then come back up to the starting position. So just sliding the hand down the lower leg, letting the head release, and then come back up. And then begin to explore, can you slide the hand down the outside of the lower leg, maybe the inside of the lower leg, maybe the back of the lower leg, and then once more down the front of the lower leg. Each time really trusting, allowing the back of the head to release towards the floor. Good. And then pause, bring your attention to your left hand on the left leg, and then just begin to reach the left hand down the left lower leg to the front, to the side, to the other side. That's it. And then to the back of down the back of the leg if possible, and then come back up to the starting position. And then bring your right hand onto the left leg and begin to do the same. Can you just explore down the front of the leg? Some of you, what I suspect, will be easily able to reach the floor. So you're just going to where you comfortably can, to the outside and to the inside, and then maybe down the back of the lower leg too, if you can. Good. And then pause. Please bring your left hand onto the right knee. Now begin again just to do a few on this diagonal. So as you're just exploring the movements of the hands, if you bring your attention to the ribs and the spine, you'll notice actually we're just getting quite a lot of interesting movement in the ribs as we're just exploring sliding the hand down. Good. And then come back to centre and rest. Good. Now please come to the front edge of your chair again and bring your attention to your head, and could you begin to side bend your head to the right and then come back to centre. So you're just thinking of taking the right ear towards the right shoulder, and then you're coming back to centre. So just encourage you to just explore this slowly, the right ear towards the right shoulder, so I'm mirroring, and then come back to centre. And just as you are exploring the ability to take the right ear towards the right shoulder, bring your attention to your spine, and just ask yourself which vertebrae, which parts of the spine can you feel are involved in taking the right ear towards the right shoulder. Maybe you can feel something at the base of the neck, feel some of the neck vertebrae getting involved. Maybe you can feel something of those vertebrae between the shoulders getting involved, and then come back to centre. Good. Just pause for a moment. Good. And then once more, bring your attention to the head and the right shoulder this time, and think of, as you taking the right ear towards the right shoulder, you're thinking of the right shoulder going down, and then you come back. So the head is tilting to the right as the right shoulder is going down, and then you're coming back to centre. So, try not to turn it into an exercise, but really an invitation to just explore what's happening with your spine. Do you get a sense that when we now include the shoulder with the tilting of their head, there's much more of the spine that's involved in the movement now. Good. Now pause, just rest again for a moment. And then just try thinking of just the right ear towards the right shoulder. Just see what that's like now. Has it maybe become a little bit easier to do just taking the ear towards the shoulder and then come back? And then keep the head fairly still in the middle. Can you just bring the right shoulder up to the ear and then away from the ear? So just letting the right shoulder, so you're pulling it all the way up to the ear, and then you let it slide away from the ear. And just notice again what's happening to the spine as you're doing this. So when my right shoulder is going up towards the ear, I can feel these ribs on the opposite side. They want to move in a little bit as the shoulder goes up to the ear, and then they want to kind of go out a little bit as the shoulder comes down. Shoulder up to the ear. Can you feel what happens to the ribs on the left hand side? And then shoulder away from the ear. Again, just as you're just exploring this movement with the right shoulder, just notice what impact it has on the spine. Good. And then pause, just take a rest. And then think of the head tilting to the right again, and the right shoulder going down, and then come back to centre. Good. So the right ear to the right shoulder as the right shoulder goes down, and then come back to centre. And just notice, are you able to go a little bit further with the head and the shoulder as you explore that movement. Good. And then just rest for a moment with the hands on the thighs, and then just test what's it like to take the head to the right, and then compare it to the left feels very, very different. And that's partly, you can perhaps feel, it's because the spine is used, we've just been teaching it effectively, or bringing our attention to the way the spine gets out of the way, as it were. It curves off to the left to help you side bend to the right. But when I suddenly want to take my left ear to my left shoulder, it's not nearly as easy at the moment. Just pause, and take a rest for a moment at the back of your chair. It's a nice lesson, this. It's quite a gentle lesson, which is no bad thing, really, because it's exploring some very interesting wave-like movements, different possibilities of movements through the spine and the vertebrae. Please come to the front edge of your chair once more. So just position yourself at the front edge of the chair, thinking about keeping the length in the front body. Now, this is going to sound odd. Now, take your right ear to the right shoulder, or to the right, and think of your left shoulder going down, and then come back to centre. So you're thinking of tilting the right ear towards the right shoulder, but you think of your left shoulder going down, and then come back to centre. So right ear to the right shoulder, but you're trying to move the left shoulder down, and then come back to centre. So I can feel it's creating quite a big stretch on the neck muscles on the left hand side. Not necessarily a comfortable feeling, and then come back to centre. Just take a rest for a moment. And then once more, could you take your right ear towards the right shoulder and stay there, and move your left shoulder up to the ear and then down and away from the ear. Up to the ear and down and away from the ear. So you stay with the head tilted towards the right ear, towards the right shoulder. You bring your attention to the left shoulder and think of bringing that shoulder up to the ear and away from the ear. So again, don't strain to do this, but if you're managing to bring the shoulder up to the ear and away from the ear, again, if you bring your attention to the ribs just underneath the left armpit area, can you feel that as you're sliding the left shoulder down, those ribs, kind of like a hand's worth of ribs, are being folded into the body and therefore pushing a very particular part of the spine over to the right. Good. Please leave that alone and just come back to centre for a moment. Good. And then bring your attention to it's very interesting now, I'm feeling a lot longer on the one side compared to the other. Maybe that's showing up on the image. So please bring your attention to both shoulders, your right shoulder and your left shoulder. And now could you move the right shoulder down as you move the left shoulder up, and then come back to centre. So right shoulder down as the left shoulder goes up, and come back to centre. Just keeping the head more or less in the middle right shoulder down as the left shoulder goes up. So again, just notice, what do you feel happening in the spine? Which way is some vertebrae pushed by the movement of the shoulders? Right shoulder down, left shoulder up. How is the weight affected into the two sit bones? And then please pause. Now, could you return to taking your right ear to the right shoulder and think of your right shoulder going down as your left shoulder goes up, and then come back to centre. Good. So right ear towards the right shoulder down, left shoulder up, and then come back to centre. Good. Just doing a few more. That's it. Right ear towards the right shoulder down as the left shoulder goes up. Good. And then come back to centre. Can you feel there's a big shift of weight, which we're familiar with in this class, over onto the left sit bone, and then come back to centre. And then when you come back to centre, just try again, taking the right ear towards the right shoulder, and then towards the left shoulder. Big difference. And then pause and just take a walk back towards the back edge of your chair, just to take a rest on the chair. It really becomes interesting, I think, when you discover the connection of the movement of the shoulders into the ribs and how the ribs can move the shoulders. It really means you've got strategies. If you're feeling a part of the spine is not quite as mobile as it could be, you can begin to sort of reach into different parts of the spine just to try and bring movement there. And please come to the front edge of your chair again. Bring your attention to the head and the left side, and could you begin to bend the left ear towards the left shoulder and then come back to centre. So just focusing on the movement of the head, left ear towards the left shoulder and then come back to centre. So where are you feeling movement in the spine? So are you feeling the chest is kept very still and actually it's just in the upper vertebrae of the neck? Or are you perhaps feeling already a little curve of the spine towards the right as you bring the left ear towards the left shoulder? Pause. And then please bring your attention to the left shoulder, and could you, as you take the left ear towards the left shoulder, think of the left shoulder going down and then come back to centre. Good. So you're thinking of the left shoulder going down as you take the left ear towards the left shoulder and then come back to centre. And again, it's your experience that matters, not mine, but I can certainly feel when I include the idea of the shoulder in the movement of my head, I can feel that much more of my spine is involved in this side bending action, this opening of the ribs on the right hand side, just by thinking of that left shoulder being involved in the movement of the head. Up and pause. And then keeping the head more or less in the middle, could you begin to bring your left shoulder up to the ear and then away from the ear? So you're kind of shrugging it up to the ear and then away from the ear. So, and again, just notice, what are you feeling as you're keeping the head more or less quiet in the middle? What are you feeling in terms of movement of the ribs and the movement of the spine. So I feel particularly when the shoulder comes down, there's the shortening of the ribs on the left hand side, and therefore that part of the spine is being moved over to the right if I'm letting it happen. Good. Now pause, and then just try bringing the left ear towards the left shoulder again a few times, just noticing, does that feel a bit easier, and why does it feel a bit easier? Are you perhaps noticing how the pelvis is beginning to get involved? And then come back to centre. Good. And just take a rest for a moment. And then please bring the left ear towards the left shoulder, but think of your right shoulder going down. So left ear towards the left shoulder, but you think of your right shoulder going down. It doesn't feel quite right, does it, when you do it? It feels as though taking that right shoulder down as you side bend to the head to the left, that taking the right shoulder down is interfering with that movement to the left. Good. So see if you can stay with the head tilted to the left. Bring your attention back to the right shoulder, and could you bring that shoulder, shrug it all the way up towards the ear, and then shrug it down and away from the ear. So you're staying tilted with the head to the left, and you're just thinking of shrugging your right shoulder up to the ear and away from the ear. Again, it's interesting, a powerful lengthening of those muscles of the neck and the trapezius area as you take the shoulder away from the ear, but also can you feel the involvement of the ribs that are just creating a little push into a very particular part of the spine. Good. And then come back to centre. And then please bring your attention to both shoulders, and now could you think of your left shoulder going down as the right one goes up, and then come back. Left shoulder down as the right one goes up, and then come back down. Again, there's a big movement in the ribs that's possible if you're allowing it to. Left shoulder down, right shoulder up, keeping the head more or less in the middle, and come back. Left shoulder down, right shoulder up, good, and then come back to centre, good. And now as you take the left ear towards the left shoulder, could you allow the right shoulder to come up and the left shoulder down, and then come back to centre. So left shoulder down, right shoulder up as the left ear goes towards the left shoulder, and then come back. Just doing a few more. Can you feel the involvement of the pelvis, the weight shift to the right to facilitate that, and then come back to centre. And then just see what it's like to tilt the head to one side now, and then towards the other side now. Is it perhaps becoming a little bit more even, or even as we're letting the spine and the ribs get involved? So just take a rest again for a moment. And then once you've had that little rest, come towards the front edge of the chair again. Now, I'm sitting on a stool, so this may or may not be possible for you, but if you can, take hold of the seat of your, bring the left hand on the seat of your chair, and push yourself, the back, over to the right, and then come back. So I'll show that. I've got my hand just on the seat of the stool. If you've got a wider seat or chair, then you can use that. Just think of pushing the back to the right and then come back. So you're really trying to push with the arm to curve the back over to the right and then letting it come back. So just pushing to take the weight over onto the right sit bone and then come back. Pushing with the arm. I'll show you what that looks like from behind. So you're pushing to really bend the back over to the other side. Good. And then release. And then bring your right hand onto the seat of the chair if you have one. So my stool's quite small, so it's not giving me much space, but you get the idea. And now could you push with your right hand to bring your weight over onto the left hand side. So just pushing, good, and release. And it's kind of interesting to explore if you're pushing down in slightly different directions, how that is affecting the movement of the ribs over onto the other side. So you're just pushing through the seat of the chair to curve your ribs over onto the other side. Good. And then pause in the middle and just see what it's like to bring the weight over onto the one side, so onto the left hand side, and then to the other side. Is it slightly easier to the one side compared to the other? So old habits, for me, it's definitely easier to bring my weight on one side than the other. That's it. Good. And then come back to centre. So just take a brief rest, noticing how the spine and the ribs are feeling. And then please bring your weight, if you can, onto your right sit bone. So you're just bringing the weight over onto the right sit bone. And just see, can you stay there on the right sit bone and breathe for a moment? So pelvis is tilted to the right, the ribs have folded on the left hand side to facilitate that. The right shoulder is higher than the left. It's a position that we're familiar with in this class. Good. And then could you bring your right hand to rest on your left shoulder and just cup the elbow with your left hand, and just see, can you move the elbow a little bit right and left, but staying on the right sit bone. So the left sit bone stays lifted. You allow the head and eyes to turn with the elbow, but they stay together. Nice, easy breathing. Can you feel how there's a little, the left sit bone is sliding a little bit forward and back as our weight is perched on the right sit bone. In pause, leave that alone, come back to the middle. And then once more, could you bring the weight onto the right sit bone? Bring the right hand onto the left shoulder, so you're staying on the right sit bone, left hand just cups the elbow. Now, could you stay looking forward as the elbow, you take it left and right. So you're staying on the right sit bone, but thinking of the elbow going left and right, but you're staying looking forward. So again, as we're exploring this movement with the elbow, Can you feel how one shoulder is coming forward, the other is going back? And again, a certain part of the spine is therefore being moved. Good. Leave it alone and come back to centre and take a rest. And then once more, please come onto your right sit bone. So you pour the weight onto the right sit bone. Have the hands just comfortably, wherever's comfortable for you. So you're on the right sit bone. And now, could you think of lifting the left shoulder to lower the right, and then lowering the left shoulder to lift the right. So one shoulder lifts as the other lowers, but you're trying to stay balanced over the one sit bone. So do whatever you like with the hands. So one shoulder going up as the other down, that's it, but you're trying to stay balanced over the right sit bone. It means you're having to find an adjustment in a different part of the spine. Good. Really think of the shoulders. You're fully exploring one going up to the ear, one down. Can you feel the movement in the ribs? Good. Please leave that alone. Just come back to centre. Notice how that all feels. Good. And then once more, please come onto your right sit bone. Right sit bone. Good. And now, as you come onto the right sit bone, could you bring the left ear towards the left shoulder a few times? Good. And now could you bring the right ear towards the right shoulder, staying balanced on this right sit bone? You think of taking the ear towards the left shoulder and then towards the right shoulder. How can you do that, staying balanced on this right sit bone? What adjustments do you make in the spine and the ribs to make this super easy? Good. Please leave that alone. Doesn't that feel strange to do that movement? Just take a rest towards the back edge of your chair. And then please come towards the front edge of your chair again. So let's go to the other side. Can you bring the weight onto the left sit bone? So very familiar movement in this class, that you're thinking of how the spine alters its shape to bring the weight onto the left sit bone. Now can you just stay there and breathe, and then bring the left palm onto the right shoulder, just support the elbow with the right palm, and then could you just begin to take the elbow, looking with the head and eyes with the elbow a little bit from side to side, but staying balanced on that left sit bone as you're doing it. Nice, easy breathing. And then begin to have the head and eyes move in the opposite direction, or at least stay looking forward to the elbow. So the elbow is going left and right. Of course the shoulders are turning around the spine, but as if you're staying looking at the screen. Oh, just feels different parts of my back being asked to move. This feels lovely. And then come back to centre. Just notice how that feels. Are you finding your ability to walk on the chair is coming more from the middle, from your middle, as opposed to thinking shoulder, ribs? Are you feeling this possibility of this movement in space of the spine? Hopefully. Please bring your weight back onto the left sit bone. Left sit bone. Then the hands can be wherever's comfortable for you. And now could you think of moving one shoulder up to the ear and then the other. But you have to keep balance on the left sit bone. That's it. So again, having to find a slightly different way. Very interesting for me on this side. To what adjustments can you make in the ribs and the spine so that you're staying with the weight balanced on the left sit bone as one shoulder comes up and the other down. Good. Pause, just take a rest for a moment. I won't need to go to a chiropractor after this. And please bring your weight back onto the left sit bone. Now go carefully, staying on the left sit bone. Could you bring the head, tilt the head to the right and then to the left, as if you wanted to bring the head to the ear to rest on the left shoulder. The head to the right and going. That's it, ear on the left shoulder. So again, how do you have to adjust through the spine and the pelvis to facilitate that? Okay. Nice, easy breathing. Good. And then please leave that alone. Carefully come back to centre. Just take a rest. And then just one more time, come to the front edge of your chair and just explore what's it like to side bend to the left, so you're allowing the right ear to go to the right shoulder and then to the other side, so left ear towards the left shoulder. Then can you feel the movement through the pelvis and the ribs and your spine? Good. And now as you bring the weight onto the right sit bone, can you bring the right ear towards the right shoulder? So bring the weight onto the right sit bone, but bring the right ear towards the right shoulder. What do you have to adjust to do that? So weight on the right sit bone, but right ear towards the right shoulder. Feels very weird. Feels like something we'd do in an airplane, sleep, and then come back. And then pause, bring your weight onto the left side, but try and bring the left ear towards the left shoulder and come back. Weight onto the left side, bringing the left ear towards the left shoulder. And how do you adjust to do that easily? Left ear towards the left shoulder. What has to happen in the spine? And then come back. And then leave it alone and just explore taking the weight to one side. Can you really feel the movement of the spine being part of this? Just notice how you're feeling, how the shoulders are feeling, how the spine is feeling. Of course, all of these movements are very relevant in walking, any kind of reaching with the arms or the feet. So, hope you enjoyed the lesson. Hope you kind of discover these possibilities more in your daily movements. Thank you very much.